Each election year, I'm reminded of the sacrifices that were made so that I could exercise my right to vote. I think about the fear that must have gripped the hearts of those who placed themselves in harm's way, opening the door for me, you, and future generations. These were incredibly courageous men and women. Among them, our nation's greatest civil rights leaders, Hosea Williams, C.T. Vivian, and Congressman John Lewis, and others who risked their lives so that we could cast our ballots freely. Let us not take the right to vote for granted. I'm Atlanta City Council Member Andrea Boone, reminding you to get registered to vote. The deadline for the November 3rd election is October 5th. Go to registertovote.sos.ga.gov. That's registertovote.sos.ga.gov. Let us honor the memory of those who made our ability to vote possible. Don't let their efforts go in vain. Let your voice be heard. Register and vote. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Atlanta City Council President Felicia Moore. Did you know the United States has been counting its population since 1790? Census 2020 is fast approaching. Your participation is crucial as it helps to determine where schools, hospitals, and new homes are built, among other services. Billions of federal dollars are allocated based upon census data. The questions are easy, and it should only take you a few minutes. You can respond online, by phone, or by mail. ATL counts. Census 2020. Atlanta is counting on you.
Jennifer Ide. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Finance Executive Committee. Today is Wednesday, September 16th, 2020. It's 1:30 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I think a few of us are having some technical difficulties, so I can't see who else is online. So I'm going to ask Ms. Kempton Wright if you'll please do a quick roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Councilmember Jennifer N. Ide.
Here.
Councilmember Howard Shook.
Aye.
Councilmember Natalie Mosley Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Andre Dickens.
Here.
Councilmember J.P. Mazakite.
Here.
Councilmember Joyce M. Shepherd.
Present.
Councilmember Matt Westmoreland.
Here.
Councilmember, there are a total of 6 additional council members on the line with you for quorum.
Thank you so much. And would you like to read the remote meeting statement?
Yes. This Finance Executive Committee is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with the official code of Georgia 5014-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by City Code. The public may access the meeting by calling by the following conference bridge, toll-free access 1-877-579-6743, conference ID 831-599-1256, which is noted on the Friday, September 11th public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, citycouncil.atlantaga.gov, or the Council's Facebook and Twitter pages via ATL Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council Finance Executive Committee presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on Friday, September 11th via atlantacityga.iqm2.com. Public comment was accepted between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on yesterday, Tuesday, September 15th. All persons present on the remote council conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Additionally, speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding chair prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen. Amendments, substitutes, and informational documents were distributed to committee members beforehand. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you, Ms. Kempson-Wright. So having determined that we have a quorum and the meeting was properly noticed, I'm going to call it to order. Our first order of business is we have a request for a walk-in from the administration that relates to watershed funding issues. So I'm going to make a motion to amend our agenda to accept the walk-in.
Second, Shook.
And we're going to do this by electronic vote, I hope. Let's open the vote if possible.
One moment. The vote is open.
All right. That's 6 yeses. Is that, should we have 6 of us or 7 of us?
We should have 7. Matt's almost logged in, and I'm a yay.
Okay. So let's count Mr. Westmoreland as a yes, which will make 7 yeses, 0 noes on the motion to amend. And now I'm going to make a motion to adopt as amended.
Second, Shook. Aye.
The vote is open.
All right, that's 7 yeses, 0 noes. Our agenda as amended has been adopted. We need to approve our minutes from our last meeting, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second, Shook.
Open the vote on that.
Aye.
The vote is open.
Good. 7 yeses, 0 noes. Our minutes have been adopted. This brings us to public comment. I believe we have 1 comment. So if Mr. Massenberg or somebody from his team can play our public comment, that would be great.
Greetings to you, committee members and staff. Official greetings to you, citizens of Atlanta who have tuned in to these proceedings. Ben Howard, the advocate, public policy analyst. At a recent Breakthrough Community meeting, the subject of face masks and the executive order appertaining to face masks was discussed. One action item agreed upon was to insist upon better signage so that in blaring words, everyone entering a business or facility, including naysayers, will know that this pandemic is serious and face masks need to be worn. Please use your influence to see that an enhanced executive order places more emphasis on signage and also on enforcement as we go down the road to a possible vaccine next year. Please also do what you can to have discussion of that revised executive order placed on the agenda of every neighborhood planning unit. Be advised, however, that in an attempt you might make to add anything at all to the tightly controlled NPUR agenda will be met with fierce resistance from the members of the NPUR 9 syndicate, Antonina Robinson, Wallace Clare, Ricardo Jacobs, Albert White, Annette L. Scott, Allison Hathaway, and the NPUR 9 cohorts.
All right, that concludes our public comment, and we do have two presentations today. If Mr. Brantley is ready, we will start with the AIM quarterly update.
Yes, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, Councilwoman Hyde, and the rest of the council members who are on the call. I say greetings from AIM. Also, I would like to thank my team in AIM for all the hard work and time that they've been putting in during the pandemic and before, and just really appreciative of all the hard work. We're going to start this off with the first slide, if they can get that queued up. And this first slide that I'm going to talk about is really indicative of a refresher that I feel needs to happen as it relates to the strategy imposed by AIM. And so it's really going to be a quick executive overview, and we call this slide the Change Imperative Framework. This is a slide that's been talked about and also has been brought forth on a few FEC quarterly update meetings, but I wanted to kind of update you on where we are today. Upon walking into the city, I had a four frameworks or four areas inside of a framework that needed to be addressed. It was strengthening the core of the city, and that's really stabilizing the infrastructure, defining IT operating models, simplifying our application portfolio, and really looking at developing and implementing standard processes and procedures. That was number one. Number two was increasing alignment, and we really wanted to improve the trust with the departments, and we also wanted to increase our engagement and also really look at defining enterprise systems and standards, and also our vendor sourcing strategy and management process, which I'll talk about shortly. Number three was innovating and also accelerating. We wanted to continue to innovate, even though we knew we had basic fundamental things that needed to be addressed within our infrastructure and within the city security area. And so we've been working on that. And last but not least is our application modernization, and that's really looking at what applications we are going to modernize, invest in, retire, and also ones we had to tolerate. And that this framework was built upon four priority areas, which is operational improvement, infrastructure and security, business engagement and alignment, and talent, and our talent and operating model. How are we going to attract talent? If we move to the next slide, this slide was shown sometime in early 2019, and it addresses, it's about 400 applications inside of our portfolio. A lot of redundancy, a lot of applications that weren't being used. And so this is what we needed to address. And in trying to address that, in some cases, it may have caused for legislation to be late. We were unraveling a lot of complicated multi-year contracts in order to really get the city where it needed to be. around really leveraging our buying power and also, reducing our application footprint in areas that just did not have a lot of use. And that has been the focus over the last 2 years. If we move to the next slide, this slide was updated in June. And as you can see, through the progress that we've made, we've kind of cut a lot of the blocks down as it relates to our roadmap. You don't see as many redundant areas across our application portfolio. And so these are some of the areas that we were able to make a lot of progress in. And again, if you look at the actual coloring of the blocks, it talks about which applications we plan to tolerate, invest in, migrate, and eliminate. This next slide is, and this is since 2018, around October of 2018, up until now, we were able to save across 21 different departments close to $6 million due to contract renegotiation and being able to eliminate applications that were of no use to the city. As we start to move forward for our FY22 and 23 years, we're looking at another $1 million in savings. And I wanted to really talk about this because I know sometimes in our legislative sessions we have some ordinances and we have some things that are late. Well, a lot of that is really around the work that the team is doing to really unpack and unravel complicated multi-year contracts in order for us to move in a different direction and to provide the cost savings that the city can take advantage of. And so I wanted to stop and go back and really talk about the work that we are actually still in process, that we're still doing, and that's still in the works as we continue to really try to push for contracts that actually make sense for the city and that are actually advantageous for the city. And so that is where the work has been. If we move to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about our IT service management and some of the things that we made a priority for the city. And so, I talked about it earlier, but really improving and securing and proactively monitoring our information and assets, continuing to attract top talent for the city is something we've really been working on. We wanted to increase our skill set, deliver consistent and stable IT performance, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next couple of slides to really show you percentage-wise how we've been able to operate consistently and also, not just consistently, but really effectively during the COVID pandemic. Our security program has really been outstanding. We are identifying vulnerabilities. If you look, we identified close to 287 critical vulnerabilities that were against the city in June, and we reduced it to 31 by August. And so we're really looking at data-driven type of decision-making, and that's reflective of what you see on the slide where we're looking at close to 475 advanced phishing messages. That means we are being attacked by spam and phishing, and we're actually identifying those and we're stopping those. And so I really want to thank the team for their effort and really making sure that the city continues to stay secure. If we look at our IT, if we move to the next slide and we look at our IT service management tickets by department, we look at this in three areas. Tickets that are logs that are kind of around running the business, tickets that are logs that are around improving the business, and tickets that are logs that are around transforming the business. We have three different areas that we kind of look at as it relates to service tickets being logged. And so over the course of August, as an example, and this is something that we're going to continue to show, we've had about 3,463 tickets that were received by different departments within the city, and our response rate, even in this telework posture, has been pretty good. We've been around 81%, and so we'll continue to push that a lot higher. We move to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about our productivity tools that we've been using for the city of Atlanta. And so if you look at this slide, you'll see different sections around email activity, our Microsoft Teams activity, our file sharing activity. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is our email activity is up to about 39 million, and we're up 12%. And this goes back to before the pandemic. So this is in March. We're up 12% in emailing. If you look at our Teams activity, we're around 678,000 active sessions, and that's extremely important because before COVID started, before we got into this posture, we were barely using Teams. I think we were around 3 or 4 sessions a day. And so we've really been relying on that to keep the city moving. Also, our storage is up 15%. Our file sharing is up 26%. And, if you really just look at our productivity tools and how we're functioning, we're really taking advantage of the technology tools that are out there to really keep the city moving forward. If we move to the next slide, this is just a depiction of what has taken place since COVID started and the deployment of actual mobile devices. We deployed 702 general fund devices. We deployed 281 Department of Watershed Management devices, 176 aviation devices. The laptops deployed since March 19 is 1,159. We've also deployed 125 MiFi devices, which is the internet devices, and also 221 smartphones. So I just wanted to let you know some of the work that's been done to also allow for our user base to continue to work through this pandemic. Also, if you move to the next slide, we started or activated a new telework support process. And so as a part of our continuous support during this telework period, we implemented a system for non-contact tech support. And so the service desk continues to support customers through remote troubleshooting methods. We have drop-off methods and mail return methods that we've been using. And so this has been an adjustment, but it's really been effective and it's been safe for the employees. And it's a new way for us to really meet the customer where they are as it relates to the issues that they are having with their devices remotely. If we move to the next slide, the next couple of slides are really just around the work that the team has done as it relates to really strengthening our presence both inside and outside of the city of Atlanta. One of the things that we've worked heavily on was the ATL Strong website, which launched in March, and we continue to add different components to this site, information that really is been beneficial for our community and our residents in our business community. And so the team continues to constantly add functionality to this site that has a lot of usage on it. If we move to the next slide, during the cyber attack in 2018, one of the things that we lost, or one of the important functions and features that we lost, was the intranet site that really was geared towards employees really being able to, get information, understand what's available to them inside of the city. And so, and this is, of course, as many of you know, for employees only, but we were able to stand this back up with a lot more features. We have several departments that are on this now. All of the major departments are on it, and we're looking to really wrap this up in the next month or so. But it has been a great process, a great journey to get to this point. And if you get a chance, please go take a look at it if you already haven't. If we move to the next slide, this is around the work that the team has done around making sure that the city was paperless. As you know, going through the city with legislative packets and having manual signing processes in place was something that we could not do once we had to remove ourselves from City Hall. And so one of the areas that the team was really able to pivot quick on was really getting us to a point where we had paperless signing, electronic signatures, contract management, and really be able to generate and negotiate paperless. And so this has gone extremely well. It was a quick turnaround to really move us in that direction. And once again, I want to thank the team for working hard across multiple departments to really get this done, up and running, and for it to run as smooth and efficiently as it's been running during this period. If we move, I believe I have two more slides. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the next slide, which is on our Smart ATL program. This is one of the projects we're working on is the AT&T Digital Equity Grant, and that's a partnership between Parks, Recreation, Police, Athletic League, and the Police Foundation to upgrade our computer labs, to provide free Wi-Fi at different centers and recreation centers across the city. Also, Accelerate Atlanta, which we're extremely proud of. This is an initiative that was worked on by my team and also the CIO Advisory Board that we commissioned to really bring community partnerships to bring partnerships from the private sector to the community around digital skilling. And so this is going to really help our underserved residents, and this is really true digital skilling. And we have partners in place such as TechBridge and Accenture to really help our residents to become more digitally skilled as it relates to their skill set. And so we also set up, and thank you for approving this, the Smart ATL Trust Fund for our kiosk program around our revenue sharing that we're getting ready to kick off. Also, there's been some work on data privacy that's been going on. And again, we'll be reaching out for representation from each one of your areas for the kiosk program around placement as we move down that road. You go to the next slide, just another update. We are working on the police transparency reporting and analysis application, and this is just to create an external data visualization and reporting site for APD. We are also working on the evidence submittal portal, and this is to create a page for the public to submit evidence on APD, OPS, and ACRB sites. And so we're in the middle of that, thick of that, ready to launch that. And also just around our enterprise content management solution, making improvements in security, brand standardization, and content relevance as it relates to our content management system. We want to really be able to, for our website, we want to really be able to make them more accessible and improve the search performance for our residents as we continue to make improvements while we work remotely. And the last area that we've been working on is really the Reimagining City Hall program. And this is the Back to Work initiative, and it's to launch a Back to Work application. And we're working with the Mayor's Task Force on this in different departments within the city, law, Dean, also Human Resources, and our Chief Health Officer. And this is really going to help us for our readiness. It'll manage facility readiness and grant employees a day pass to enter facilities after passing a health assessment. Also, continuing to make improvements to our Fix-It ATL site with Operation Clean Sweep, adding that's phase 2. And also our Reimagine Justice Reform initiative, where we're providing insight to the public on improvements made to transform the criminal justice experience. And so with that is the update, Councilwoman I, for AIM, and I will stop to address any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brantley. Colleagues, does anybody have any questions regarding the AIM presentation? If so, hit your speaker button or send me a message. right, Councilmember Shepherd.
Thank you. I want to know, are you working with the court system on a software program for court to reopen? Are you working, Judge Porter, in the court administration over there on any type of software program? Is that a part of your purview also with AIMS?
Yes, thank you for that question, Councilwoman Shepherd. And yes, we are working with not just the courts, but the rest of the city as well, and also our public safety division to really address how we get back inside and how we can use technology to help facilitate that.
Do you have any idea how long it would take before y'all have something up and running?
I need to go and verify. I know in our reimagining City Hall program, it would be linked. So I'll get some verification on when that will be completed and get it back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd. Does anybody else have questions for AIM? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Brantley. That was an informative report, and we look forward to, well, you're probably sticking around for the meeting. I assume you have something on the agenda, but we will hear from you next quarter, if not before. That's going to take us to our next report. It's from the Department of Procurement quarterly report. Oh, and I do want to acknowledge we've also been joined by Council President Felicia Moore. I missed her in the roll call. So thank you, Council President, for joining us today. All right, Procurement, you're on.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Martin Clark, Interim Chief Procurement Officer. And I hate when I have to follow Gary and his wonderful graphics and charts. They're mesmerizing. However, this humble quarterly report will update you on the very many DOP items DOP has been up to over the last couple of months. Next slide, please, Santana. First and foremost, we listen to your concerns and that of our user agencies, constituents, the administration as well, concerning our processes and service level. And to that end, today we will look at the operational improvements we've made in the last 3 months and relatedly, the training we've engaged to make those improvements. We'll also discuss why we are drafting new SOPs and finally discuss all the help that you all have provided us thus far. So let's jump into it. Next slide, please, Santana. Operational improvements. As you can see, we have been extremely busy in the Department of Procurement. We've been onboarding new managers. We've had a massive increase in department-wide training. We've had a significant decrease in the number of open requisitions, and what you'll notice is that there's been a lot of collaboration with the user agencies. I will go a little further in depth later, but we've made process improvements with the Department of Finance on direct pay conflict, process improvements with user agencies on trigger package readiness so that we improve the speed at which we can get to advertising for our solicitations. Essentially, we're really trying to shorten the time to complete our solicitations. And we did that by walking through every touch point in the process to identify where are our slowdowns. So we decreased disparate advice between managers of different departments, and we're also in the process of simplifying the search process for our contracts. We even expanded the use of pre-trigger meetings rather than waiting up to 10 days to start project meetings with our user agencies. Next slide, please, Santana. Thank you. Committee members, in our search for improvements, we also heard from the staff. They wanted more training, and we listened. And as you can see, in just the last 3 months, we have massively increased our training opportunities. We also use those trainings to allow our internal folks to shine by showing their expertise, and that boosts morale because we have just fantastic personnel amongst our midst. And I wanted to also send a thanks to the Chief Transparency Officer for curating an open records training for the procurement staff. We've had CARES Act compliance training by Landmark Consulting, how to build a solicitation in the Oracle system for our internal staff. We are continuing to target acumen and expertise amongst procurement professionals, and with that knowledge, hopefully providing more confidence and better performance on the service levels to you and the agency. As another improvement, I am standardizing the training checklist for new employees coming into the department so that we have a consistent level of advice going out to the user agency. Santana, if you could hit the next slide, please. So, council members, I kept hearing user agencies say that they were getting conflicting opinions on process and procedure at DOP. So, really, how can we expect them to provide us the things we need to even begin the procurement process if we weren't being consistent? So to literally get us all on the same page, we are redoing our 6-year-old standard operating procedure manual. And there are many reasons, not the least of which is to make sure that the department staff is consistent in the advice they are giving, but also providing comfort to the user agencies that they know exactly what they need to provide us as we craft their solicitations and complete the process. We are getting assistance from an outside consultant to help us create a best-of-class SOP, which will serve as the basis for our training programs and hopefully put us all on the same page. We have gotten a lot of advice and feedback from user agencies on where we can improve, which leads us to our final slide, service levels and interoperability. Santana, if you could pull up the next slide, please. Thank you. I could not give this first quarterly report without noting all of the assistance and support I received from the user agencies, the administration and council members. For instance, Makita Browning from Watershed provided data from her procurement review team to assist us, or Commissioner Tim Keene in planning providing great insights on process improvement with his team. John Selden and the aviation team worked with us on improving our trigger package approaches. Josh Rowan and his team helping us potentially with an innovative road improvement procurement. Nina in the law department on contract modifications. Roosevelt in finance with payment processes, and even Gary from AIM on streamlining the number of tech contracts. And a score of many others who have provided assistance to us. So, as you can see, we are trying to enlist engagement and collaboration to improve the department and hopefully make you all proud. We are being very aggressive in that approach. Chairperson, that is the end of my report, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, if you have a question for procurement, please hit your speaker button or send me a message. Mr. Matsapite.
Thank you, Chairperson Ide. My question is, and I'm sure this varies, Mr. Clark, but what's the range of time that it takes for a procurement? What's the shortest amount of time, and what would it be for a complex procurement?
Sure. It's actually something that we're going through now, Chairman Matsapite. I mean, you can have a good, meaning a goods contract that could take 59 days or less. And then, believe it or not, you could have a service contract that can go anywhere between 180 way on up. And one of the things I think is really important to note, folks, is this. Because the procurement process is so collaborative, a lot of the holdups or the extensions are actually not on the procurement side, but rather on the user side. So, perfect example. We do not we need what's called trigger packages to begin the procurement process. And there are documents that are required within that process. So once we receive the trigger package from the user agency, if there's missing pieces, we end up having to actually ask for those documents and then wait. But that waiting logs time. So that's one touch point. Another touch point. So when we do a pre-bid conference, then we allow the public to ask questions about solicitation. We are required to answer those questions in an addendum, but we then have to turn around to the experts or the user agency experts to answer those. And sometimes that may take a number of weeks. So again, on another touch point, we then have a slowdown. And so then on another part of the process in reviewing responsiveness, for example, we have to get responses from different agencies on that matter, and it may take time or a number of days or a number of weeks. So what you see is along the path, when you pick up a couple of days here or a couple of days there or even weeks, you end up having an extended time. And so that's why we have been looking at every touch point and analyzing how do we cut this time period. And even if you notice with my presentation, the focusing on the SOP and the training, it's important for us to have consistent advice so that so that the user agency already knows what they have to provide us. And all of those things together hopefully will result in a shortened time path there.
Thank you. Do you have statistics on what an average procurement would take? Are you tracking that to see?
We are. Yeah, we do, and we do log a number of reports, and we have quite a number of metrics that we are logging. One of the things that we are doing, though, Councilman Matsukaitis, is that we are looking at the methodology on collection and also determining really what is actionable data. I mean, what are the items that we're really interested in? And over the next couple of weeks and over the next couple of months, we will be presenting our metrics and hopefully providing you and the administration an executive dashboard, and a better executive dashboard into the mechanics and the operations of the department.
So what would an average procurement, so if we say, it has to go through procurement, what's kind of an average time that it takes?
It depends, again, if it's going to be commodities or services. Commodities are shorter, and I am loath to give an average because this is over a time period of months, years, etc. But it could be anything for commodities at around 59 or so, and then potentially in the services side, anywhere from 180 on up.
Fair enough. Thank you. That concludes my questions. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Ms. Matsukaitis. Does anybody else have any questions while we have Mr. Clark with us? All right. Seeing no other hands raised, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Clark, and we look forward to hearing how this process continues. So thank you for your good work. This brings us to our consent agenda, and Ms. Kempson-Wright, if you will read our ordinances for first read.
Item number 1 is 20-1583, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the aggregate principal amount of $13,455,089.35 in connection with the City of Atlanta Equipment Lease Number 5 to the Master Lease Agreement dated June 15, 2018 with First Municipal Credit Company, LLC. Item number 2 is 20-1584, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations legal settlement proceeds in the amount of $244,873.06 in connection with the Water and Wastewater Fund. And item number 3 is 20-1585, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget by adding to anticipations and appropriations fund proceeds in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $61,949,715.00 in connection with the City of Atlanta Water and Wastewater Drawdown Revenue Fund, Taxable Series 2020, and for other purposes.
Thank you. So those items will follow their course and will come back to us in 2 weeks for our consideration. We are now moving into our regular agenda, and we have one, I believe, communication, which is item number 4, 20C0077, a communication from Marian Cameron, the chair of the Audit Committee, submitting the performance audit report hiring process, and I believe we have our city auditor, Amanda Noble, with us today to present this communication.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Amanda Noble, City Auditor, and we are here to present the audit report. The team was Stephanie Jackson, Deputy City Auditor, Mia Young, the team leader, and then Myra Higley and Lindsay Kuhn. And Mia will be presenting the slides. If you're ready, Mia.
Thank you so much. We are ready.
Yep. Hello? We can hear you. We're ready. Just double checking.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. So our objectives on the second slide are related to answering the questions of, is the hiring process clear to all of the stakeholders? Are all of the controls in place to ensure that hiring practices complied with federal and state regulation and codes and city codes? And then also whether or not resources are in place to ensure that the process is implemented efficiently and consistently. So on to the next slide. Our scope excluded public safety and city council. The scope of the audit focused on employees that were hired between January the 7th of 2019 and April the 20th of 2020 this year, with the exception, again, of public safety and city council employees. We excluded these 2 categories of employees because HR uses a different hiring process, and we've also started a separate audit of APD hiring. During our audit, HR implemented a pilot project that affected a small group of departments. The pre-pilot phase was from January 7th to October the 3rd, and our audit scope began with the most recent Oracle upgrade that happened before the pilot. From October the 3rd to November the 29th, HR gradually implemented a pilot program as shown in the graphic, and the pilot started with watershed management and eventually included the executive offices, the Office of Law, and the Public Defender, Solicitor's Office, and the municipal courts as well. The pilot was implemented for these 6 departments. On December the 2nd of 2019, the city then rolled out the post-pilot process to the entire city. Okay. So getting into our methodology on the next slide, we, during the course of the audit, we ended up interviewing staff from HR, user departments, and city council. We reviewed federal, state, and municipal regulations and internal policies and procedures, and tested hiring software that the city uses. And we reviewed 75 of the employees that were hired or promoted from January 2019 through February of 2020. And then we also did some calculations to determine the time to fill for positions in the scope of January 2019 through April 2020. So to get into our findings, an overview of our findings were that the city improved the time to fill for vacant positions after implementing the pilot program, but fell short of some of the targets. The pre-pilot hiring process was not standardized or transparent to city departments, and we also found that comprehensive procedures were still needed. The process changes did shorten the median hiring time by 35%, but there were some issues with reliable data being available. We also found that there was improved system controls that could decrease risk. We found that improved system controls could decrease risk. Controls are in place to mitigate the risk of discriminatory hiring. We were also able to see that. And additionally, we saw that there were some inconsistencies in the compliance with the record retention and vacancy announcements requirements. There were files missing from some of the employee file samples that we reviewed. And then in the vacancy posting announcements, some of the requirements were also missing. And moving to the next slide, the time to fill. So the time to fill is defined by the industry expert, SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, as the date that the position is created to the date that the candidate accepts the offer. So we were able to see that the time to fill improved by about 35% from the time of the review with the pre-pilot to the post-pilot. But the post-pilot time period was too short to be conclusive. The data did not allow measures for the results for all of the vacant positions because HR does not always create a new requisition for each of the new vacancies, which prevents complete and accurate measurement of the time to fill. So looking at the table, the post-pilot time to fill was 32 days, which was slightly over the industry median of 30 days. And what we did here to compare similar time frames and see the improvement from the pre-pilot to the post-pilot, we looked at the 4-month sample size, and that included September through December of 2019 for requisitions that were created between August 25th of 2019 and December of 2019. And as of early April, the city's median post-pilot time to fill was 32 days, which is slightly higher than the industry benchmark of 30 days. Additionally, the post-pilot results also fell short of the city's goal of filling a position from approval to hire date to 35 business days. And although the period is longer than the industry benchmark of the 30 calendar days, it includes more steps, and many of them are outside of HR's control. Another area that we looked at was HR streamlining of the hiring approvals through the request to fill form and the vacancy review board. So in this instance, in the pilot and the post-pilot, the city replaced the PTAS, or the personal transaction authorization form, with the request to fill form. The original form, the PTAS, or the personal transaction form, required 5 hard signatures within HR and the hiring department. And in the new form, HR streamlined the approval workflow by reducing the required sign-off to just 2, which included the hiring department commissioner and the vacancy review board. Although it can't be automated in Taleo, HR is working to automate this the new request to fill form. Policies also required that the hiring manager attach the request to fill to the position requisition. However, we found that Taleo does not have a control requiring the hiring manager to actually attach that form and complete the budget analysis, or attach the budget analysis, HR staff stated that the system can't require that attachment, but they're looking into adding a button so that hiring managers can confirm that they have that required documentation. Since the city implemented the new process, we found that the majority, which is about 90% of the requests to fill submitted to the Vacancy Review Board between December the 2nd, 2019 and January 20th of this year followed HR's new post-pilot process and contained the required information, which included the budget analysis, the department head signature, and the Vacancy Review Board approval signature. We also noted that the Department of Finance is not consistently involved in the budget review, and when filling a vacant position, the department filling the position performs a budget analysis to confirm that the funding is available before submitting a request. And the hiring department staff, or the Department of Finance budget manager, and the hiring department commissioner performs the budget validations to fill the vacant position. Before the pilot, only a few departments used the finance analyst to review funding for positions requests. And then post-pilot, the Vacancy Review Board has the HR staff person conduct the final analysis on the position. So on the next slide, getting into our recommendations that relate to those areas, we recommended that the HR create a reliable and consistent hiring goal for measuring the time to fill positions, and management agreed with that. We also recommended that recruiters create requisitions rather than adding new positions to existing requisitions in order to improve accuracy, and management agreed to that as well. We recommended to reduce the risk that the Vacancy Review Board could approve possible unauthorized or unfunded positions. We recommended that HR and AIM continue to work together to automate the request to fill for board review and approval. Again, management agreed in that area. We also recommended that AIM add a control in Taleo for hiring managers to confirm that they have all the necessary paperwork prior to submitting it for approval. And again, they agreed. And we recommended to ensure that requests to fill reflect current and accurate budget information. We recommended that HR require the Department of Finance budget analyst to perform the budget validation to fill out all of the vacant positions. Again, management agreed. So all of our recommendations related to those findings, management agreed to. So getting into the next area on the next slide, with the pre-pilot process not being standardized or transparent, we had some findings there, and which also included that comprehensive procedures were still needed. So pre-pilot, the policies and procedures were last updated between 2003 and 2008. We also found that they did not define the roles, approval requirements, or timeframes, and interviewees also stated that the process was unclear and inconsistent, interviewees being HR staff. Post-pilot, we found that there were 6 reference documents or reference guides that were not comprehensive and had some conflicting guidance. We identified the following. Some policies and procedures were referenced in just one of the documents. Some documents conflicted with policies and procedures, and some policies with budget impacts were not referenced at all, such as the hiring bonuses for general positions, and additionally that not all roles and responsibilities were described, and some tasks may be handled either by the hiring department or HR staff, which may create or which may affect some consistency there. So on the next slide, we had two recommendations, which included developing one comprehensive policy and procedure manual that clarifies the role and responsibilities for hiring managers, and then also documenting the policies for the hiring bonus and updating controls in the hiring software that's consistent with that procedure. And in both instances, management agreed. So moving to the next slide, we have a finding as well that improved system controls could decrease risk. We noted that there were some manual steps outside of Taleo. Most of the city's hiring process takes place within Taleo's module for recruiting and onboarding. The system contains input controls to ensure candidates and HR staff have accountability and transparency. However, there were no controls in place to ensure that the manual steps, which are completed outside of Taleo, actually comply with the hiring requirements. The manual steps included the request to fill, the request to extend an offer form, the offer letter, and some candidate hiring. The manual steps can pose a risk for compliance with hiring regulations, reduce efficiency, and increase the potential of errors. In another area, we noted that there was a lack of segregation of duties for some recruiter tasks. The recruiter functions as the sole editor of parts of the requisition, and they are also the only requisition approver, which is incompatible duties that should not be performed by the same person because it may create an increased risk of errors and irregularities occurring in the requisition without being detected or approved by someone else. Recruiters also have other abilities that do not require approval. Some areas lacked clarity, efficiency, and transparency. Some tasks in Taleo have an unclear chain of approval, and information is needed for the offer letter is not required in the candidate application, and HR could improve the candidate accountability by requiring a matching application signature. We also found that some of the candidate onboarding forms were also unclear. And to that effect, on the next slide, the recommendations that we made included HR working with the departments to capture all candidate transactions within Taleo, and management agreed. We also recommended that HR use the existing automated request to extend the offer form and other letter functionalities within Taleo to improve the efficiency and reduce errors. Management also agreed. And to further recommend that we further recommended that HR separate duties for requisition, editing, and approval to reduce the risk of errors. And in this instance, management disagreed. And we also recommended to reduce the potential for system access, abuse, and errors that HRIS, information systems, and talent acquisition determine how to prevent, detect, and monitor bypassing offer changes. and management agreed. We also recommended that recruiters check for duplicate profiles and merge them before extending an offer to improve data integrity, and management agreed. And then we recommended that HR establish performance measures for staff in the recruiting positions and training in order to increase accountability and accuracy, and management also agreed. And then we also recommended that HR work with AIMS to make sure the street addresses is a required field in the candidate application to improve clarity, efficiency, and transparency. 4 other areas in Taleo that we made recommendations for included removing the benefit summary page for new hires to improve clarity. Based on the recent updates, we recommended that Taleo required that candidates' e-signatures match their last name on their application, and that Taleo clearly indicate when candidates should submit the physical task during onboarding, and provide clearer instructions for required information to stakeholders. In 2 of these areas, management disagreed, which was removing the benefit summary page for new hires and also clearly indicating when candidates should submit their physical tasks during the onboarding process. The others, management agreed. And then moving to the next slide, controls, and we found that controls in place to monitor hiring, that there were controls in place to monitor hiring related legal compliance. Federal and state employee equal employment opportunity law and the Americans with Disability Act place requirements on employers to prevent hiring discrimination. And we found that on the website there was a statement that the city's Career Center contains stating that it does not unlawfully discriminate with preference or limitations based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, and veteran status, and that it will make reasonable accommodations for a qualified individual with a disability. We found that Taleo had confidentiality controls, in that Taleo contains controls to prevent access to certain confidential information. For example, the system prevents recruiters and hiring managers from being able to view responses to some of the voluntary equal employment opportunity questions that are on the application. The ADA requirements, the physical regulations, we found that Taleo controls also functioned to ensure that recruiters followed the ADA regulations for physical checks. And the separation of files, HR maintains controls of hard copies and electronic files across its divisions. The information system, talent acquisition, employee and labor relations, and benefits offices, depending on the type of file. HR's practice to store specific documents separately is prescribed by EEO, ADA, and the Georgia Code to prevent discrimination in hiring. The last one, we also found that legally required forms were filled out online. Candidates must fill out the legally required forms as part of their post-offer check, complying with EEO, complying with the federal, the EEO, and ADA, and in the state, SAVE, and local city regulations. On the next slide, we noted some areas in the record retention. and we found that 30% of the 75 files missing from employee file samples. We reviewed a sample of employee files and found that HR did not consistently maintain all of the legally required documentation. And HR told us that they did not create some of the hard copy files because leadership directed them to shift from paper files to digital files, and then they were asked to move back to paper files, which created a backlog for some of the files. As a result, we could not confirm that our sample contained all of the legally required documents in compliance with the federal regulation. HR provided a copy of its new employee package checklist, which is a comprehensive checklist describing all of the documents that new hires must complete. However, the checklist does not outline the specific documents that each department must contain. And we identified 8 legally required forms and 15 other forms that should be completed for new hires. While HR staff stated that I-9 forms were stored separately from the personnel files, we found that some of the I-9 files were in the same file as the personnel records. Additionally, 5 of the 10 vacancy posting announcements that we reviewed had some missing information that was required. We reviewed 10 active postings of classified positions posted to the website portal, and we found that they did not consistently contain all of the city code requirements. According to city code section 114-182, the announcement for classified must include the job title, salary, qualifications, the manner of making applications, open and closing dates, and notification of examinations if required. Unclassified positions are not required to be posted, and 5 of the 10 positions that we reviewed did not include the salary, opening date, and the closing date. Although Taleo has all of the required fields, it does not automatically populate the job posting with the salary and the opening and closing dates, which we found may affect potential applicants' understanding of the application's deadlines and salary expectations for the vacant position. So on the next slide, related to those findings, the recommendations that we made included, we recommended HR create a quality assurance process for creating and maintaining personnel files, which includes a list of documents that are legally required, which need to be maintained separately from the personnel file and the location of the file. And management agreed in this instance. And we also recommended that HR, talent acquisition, and HR information systems work together to develop a standardized posting template for the classified positions in Taleo to ensure that HR follows city code regarding vacant position announcements. And on that one, management agreed as well. Yes, so those are our findings and what we have from our audit report.
Sorry, I got stuck on mute. Thank you so much. So again, my colleagues, hit your speaker button or send me a message if you have questions about the audit report. All right, it looks like there are no questions. Thank you for a very detailed and thorough report, Ms. Young, and thank you, Ms. Noble and the rest of your team for doing this work. And I think we're going to be hearing from you in 2 weeks on some of the other audits you've done. So thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.
All right, this brings us to our ordinances for second read. I had a request from one of our colleagues, from Mr. Brown, because he was juggling a community meeting to hear his items, but Ms. Kempson, right, has Mr. Brown joined us?
Yes, Madam Chair, he is on the line.
Okay, then we're going to jump down to item number 12, so Mr. Brown can get back to his meeting, which is in resolutions, and it's 20R4313, a resolution by Councilmembers Antonio Brown and Amir R. Ferozi to urge the Georgia General Assembly to enact legislation to adopt ranked choice voting for all elections and or permit counties and municipalities to make use of ranked choice voting in local elections and for other purposes. And this had been dual referred, and if it moves from this committee, then it will go to Committee on Council. So, Mr. Brown, do you want to tell us quickly what this resolution is asking the General Assembly to do?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing me to come early in the agenda. So the ranked choice voting resolution urges the General Assembly to allow municipal use of ranked choice voting. And basically, it's to curb the need and cut the cost of expensive runoff elections. And it's already constitutionally accepted. It's an accepted process to streamline the transition period for peaceful continuity of government. So this paper, it's pretty self-explanatory. We think it's important that there is an option of ranked choice voting, and we're urging the Georgia General Assembly to put a process in place to allow this.
All right, Mr. Shook, I see you have your hand up. And then after Mr. Shook, Councilmember Archibald.
Yeah, thank you. This is an interesting idea. I've not been able to do a lot of research into it. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this and how it would work. Particularly, I'm trying to figure out the ways in which we might get kind of unfortunate consequences that we weren't counting on. I certainly understand the theory behind it, and clearly this has been in use in numerous other places and in some places for a while now. I would love to see, I assume it's been studied to death, I'd love to see those results showing whether or not the various pros and cons of this concept have actually played out. And so if you have any of that or can point me in the right direction, and maybe this was discussed previously in committee, I don't know, that would be great. And then more locally, I wonder if you were able to talk to our municipal clerk, as I'm sure his input would be interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, you want to respond?
Yes, absolutely. Hey, thank you so much, Councilmember Shook. I did speak with the municipal clerk when I first brought this up. I wasn't sure if we needed to do a resolution or if this was something that the city could institute on its own without impeding on any of the state laws. And the municipal clerk, Mr. Webb, basically said, Antonio, you'll have to do a resolution, that this is something that unfortunately the state law impedes local municipalities from doing on their own. So, I thought this was a really good way to introduce a process that is already happening across 11 cities today. For me, there's a ton of studies, Councilmember Shook, and I can work to get you those studies, and we'll actually email out those studies to all the council members. But it's shown to be extremely effective. And not only does it show it to be extremely effective, but it shows how municipalities have the ability to save on costs and how more efficient that process is, the voting process is, when moved or transitioned to a ranked choice voting. So I'll work with our council staff to get you out that research. Some of it is already in the whereas clauses in the legislation, but I'll make sure that we have a more comprehensive study sent out.
Are you at all concerned about adding to the complexity of counting ballots? We seem, unfortunately, to the last several cycles, to be having a hard enough time with the old way.
No, Councilmember, I am concerned, and we had this conversation. We actually, outside of Maine, which was one of the recent states that utilized ranked choice voting, we inquired on kind of some of the hurdles that the city and states had to overcome when it came to the ranked choice voting. And, with things moving more electronically and allowing for a process that is not just efficient, but there's integrity built into the process through the electronic system that's been established around ranked choice voting, it's been able to limit the exposure on a lot of those issues. And the only point in time in which it comes into a manual counting process is if something is kicked back, and then there's a manual review process within the ranked choice voting process. So there are systems in place to help alleviate a lot of that, and that's also spoken about in the studies as well that we were reviewing alongside this legislation. And there's several Georgia House representatives that have really been pushing ranked choice voting just because of the efficiencies around it, that also have written certain pieces, op-eds on this particular process.
All right. Well, again, thank you. It's an interesting topic. I'm going to support this because I do think it's a conversation that I know I'd like to hear more about, and so the appropriate venue for that would be under the Gold Dome. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilmember Shook.
Councilor Archibald, you're up next.
I was going to ask sort of a similar thing about the study. And so, Member Brown, typically when we are pushing an idea to the state, it's for them to study. And I heard you respond to Councilmember Shook's question. So, and I don't know if that would be the response from the state anyway. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but I was going to ask about if we wanted to add requests that the state study it as part of the...
I think that's a great idea, Councilmember.
So, Councilmember Ide, how would we do that amendment, or is that something Santana could just do for us? How do we do that? I'd make that motion, by the way.
Let me, and Ms. Kempson, right, if you see a place in there. So you want to add to the language of the resolution, not just urging them to enact it, but to adopt it or allow study. Okay. But do you want to leave in there urging them to enact it, or your amendment is to just ask them to study it?
I think it would be fine to have both. If study might say we're not going to enact it, but Mr. Brown, what do you think?
I think that's a great. I think we should have them study it and present. If we can include some kind of clause that requests that they study it, and then based on the findings of the study, the Georgia General Assembly will look at what it would take to enact from that study. I think that's a great direction to take.
So maybe they study it and consider enacting it.
Right.
Yes.
That's great language.
Okay. I'm just looking to see, trying to pull the actual, and Mr. Brown, I'm just pulling up the actual paper to see where that might fit.
I can't find it quick enough.
Yes, Madam Chair, so I have the paper up.
I would say in the caption, we should change it to say a resolution by Councilmembers Antonio Brown and Amir Akarogi to urge the Georgia General Assembly to study and consider enacting legislation, and then it will just continue. And then in the whereas, in the resolve clause, I think just change it to say the same thing, that the City Council of the City of Atlanta urges the Georgia General Assembly to study and consider enacting legislation to adopt.
Madam Chair, is there any way, and I don't know if this is possible within the resolution, but is there any way we can put a time period in which we would ask them to consider this and consider a potential study? Or is that, I mean, I know they're not in session until January and we're in September, but I just didn't know if that was possible or not, just throwing that out there.
I think they're going to do what they're going to do, but we could put a reference to the what do they call the next session will be called the 156th session. I don't know how they number theirs, if they call it. I mean, that would be the number of it, or the 2021 to 2022. Mr. Westmoreland, you're the expert in these things. What is the upcoming session commonly referred to?
I think it's just the 2021 legislative session.
Okay.
I thought it was correct. All right. Okay.
I mean, they're 2-year sessions to start, but I think we could say that. I think we could just add in there, ask them to consider it during the 2021 Georgia General Assembly session.
Yeah, so the 155th Georgia General Assembly started January 2019, and this year was the 156th, and then next year will be the 157th Georgia General Assembly. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it says the 100th Assembly and proceeds the 156th session in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, but why don't we just say the 2021 session?
Okay, that works.
Okay, Ms. Kempson-Wright, did you capture what the amendment's going to say?
Yes, I have captured it.
Okay, so Ms. Councilmember Archibong, do you want to make a motion to make that amendment?
So moved.
Shook, second.
Okay. All right, let's prepare the vote on the amendment.
The vote is open.
And Mr. Dickens, how do you vote?
Yay, in the affirmative.
Okay. Can record Dickens as a yes. Mr. Westmoreland, are you voting by voice or machine?
I have been kicked off, so count me as a yay.
Okay.
Vote is closed.
Let's see. All right, that's 7 yeses, 0 no's to amend. So any further questions or discussion, or I will make a motion. Yes?
No, I'll make a motion to adopt as amended.
Okay. All right, so motion by Archibong to adopt as amended, second by Shook. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Aye.
So yes by Westmoreland. Dickens?
Aye.
Okay. Yes by Dickens. All right, so this item is favorable as amended, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Let me jump back to Mr. Brown has one more paper, and then we will get you out of here and back to your meeting. I believe that is item 23, which was in the dual referred. It's 20R4316, a resolution by Councilmember Antonio Brown urging the federal government to pass legislation to provide universal comprehensive health care coverage with zero cost sharing for patients during public health crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, and calling on federal legislators to work toward the immediate enactment of legislation that will ensure appropriate health care coverage for all residents of the United States and for other purposes. My understanding is this went before Community Development and Human Services yesterday, where it was amended, and I may need to ask Mr. Brown or Mr. Westmoreland to tell us what the amendment did and what it was favorable by committee, but I don't have the vote in front of me. So, Mr. Westmoreland, what was the vote in CD?
It was unanimous, and the amendment reinforced the need for all Americans to have health care during health crises like currently living through, and then backed away from explicitly supporting pending Medicare for All legislation sitting before the Congress, and instead urged support for whatever approach got us to universal coverage in a financially sustainable manner.
Okay. Mr. Brown, do you want to say anything before we consider this?
Yeah, I just want to say, colleagues, Councilmember Westmoreland is correct in the fact that the amendment that was made by Councilmember Faroki, originally the legislation was presented as health care for all is like the only option, and we believe that Medicare for all, health care for all should be an option that people can choose to opt into should they not choose their own personal health care coverage or any other insurance being provided to them, that they would have this option available to them. And we thought that was important to kind of differentiate that, as it wasn't just a one-all, be-all solution. And that's really it. So, Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to bring this paper before this committee.
Thank you. And so, my SEC colleagues, the amendment, I believe, was in our packet, but if you don't have it in front of you, I'm just going to read where they ended up on the resolve clauses. It says, now therefore be it resolved that City Council of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, that the Atlanta City Council hereby urges the federal government to pass legislation to provide universal comprehensive health care coverage with zero cost sharing for patients during public health crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Be it further resolved that the Atlanta City Council endorses federal legislation such as the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act and calls on federal legislators to work towards the immediate enactment of this or substantially similar legislation to ensure appropriate health care coverage for all residents of the United States during this crisis and the crisis recovery period. So that is where they ended up on the resolution clauses. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, that motion from Archibald?
Yes.
I will make a second. Aye. Any questions from Mr. Brown or any discussion? Otherwise, the vote is open.
I'm still having issues. This is Westmoreland. Count me as an aye.
Okay, Dickens?
Yes, count me as an aye.
All right. All right, this item is favorable as amended with 6 yeses and 1 abstention from Mr. Matzkeit. All right, thank you, Mr. Brown, for being with us today, and I think that covered your items.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I need to jump back for a minute. I forgot to accept the communication that was presented by the audit team, which was item number 420C0077. So I'm going to make a motion to accept and file.
Shook seconds.
All right, let's open the vote on that.
The vote is open.
Aye.
Mr. Westmoreland's a yes. Dickens?
Aye.
Okay. All right, that was 7 yeses, 0 nos. That communication has been accepted and filed. We're going to go back up to the top of our agenda to our ordinances for second read. Item number 5, 20-1561, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend the fiscal year 2021 general fund budget by anticipating and appropriating funds in the amount of $1,819,602 for the receipt of insurance reimbursement funds related to the March 2018 cyber attack, and to allocate funding for the purpose of city-related election expenses and for other purposes. I do have one question about, I will make a motion to adopt, but I do have a question about it also. You want to hear it second?
Shook, second.
All right, seconded by Shook. I don't know who from the administration, if it's finance or AIM, to address this. I was just curious of why this paper takes this insurance reimbursement and allocates it to election expenses. If it was related to election expenses to begin with, or if that's just a policy decision that the administration has asked for. Yes, sir. Is this Mr. Roosevelt? Yep.
No, this is Jerry Deloach.
Okay, Mr. Deloach.
I'll comment, and then if Mr. Council is on the line, he wants to comment. But we've had discussions about this. But the reason it's being allocated is because the funds have been received by the city, and it's a reimbursement. Those expenses have already been paid for by the city using other funds, and so it's a reimbursement which allows the city to use it in any manner that it wants to. So that was
okay.
my response. Oh.
So there was this is not a reimbursement necessarily for election-related expenses. That's just where we've decided to use, we can put the funds anywhere in the general fund, and the administration has decided they want to put them towards election expenses. Okay?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Council or Mr. Deloach? Otherwise, we'll open the vote.
The vote is open.
Dickens is an aye.
All right. Westmoreland?
I'm back online.
Okay. This item is favorable. I'm waiting for one more vote. All right, 7 yeses, 0 no's. This item is favorable. Takes us to item number 6, 20-1564, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designee to enter into amendment number 1 to establish the initial contract term to be July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020 for cooperative purchasing agreement CPS 1200109 with Gartner Inc. for subscription-based technology research and advisory services, and to exercise renewal option number 1 retroactively effective July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021, in accordance with Section 2-1163 of Article 10, Procurement of Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta, Code of Ordinances, on behalf of the Department of Atlanta Information Management, Department of Watershed Management, and Department of Aviation, in an amount not to exceed $295,803.82. All contractor work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And Mr. Brantley, is this your paper?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is our paper, and this was brought forth because the service date of the original contract did not coincide with our fiscal year, and so it had us paying twice in 1 year, and so we wanted to correct that contract so that it would align with our fiscal year.
Okay, well, that was going to be my question to you, how we've been using their services for so long and didn't have hadn't contracted for it, but this is more of a fix than we were never under contract with them.
Yes, this is more of a fix.
Okay. All right, I will make a motion to adopt.
Shook seconds.
Let's open the vote unless anybody has a question for Mr. Brantley.
The vote is open.
Mr. Dickens?
Yay.
Let's see. With Mr. Dickens, we should be at 7 yeses, 0 noes. This item is favorable. Item number 7, 20-1565, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor, her designee, on behalf of the city of Atlanta to accept donations of personal protective equipment, PPE, such as masks, gowns, gloves, face shields, and hand sanitizers, COVID-19 test kits, and professional services from the state of New York to assist the city of Atlanta with its ongoing COVID-19 response efforts, authorizing the acceptance of such donations through June 30th, 2021, ratifying the acceptance of PPE and test kits from the state of New York as described herein, delivered prior to the passage of this ordinance and for other purposes. I don't know who from the administration might be able to speak to this, but can someone just tell us briefly what we have accepted, what we plan to accept, and who's using it and what we're doing with it? Okay, do we have Mr. Keene today by any chance? Well, I'm going to assume we're doing good things with it if nobody's here to provide the details. But I will make a motion to accept if nobody from the administration can speak to this.
Second by Shook.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
I'm a yay.
All right. All right, this item is favorable with 7 yeses, 0 noes. Brings us to the next item, and I should have moved this up also, because I think Ms. Councilmember Smith has joined us today. Item number 8 is 20-1568, an ordinance by Councilmember Carla Smith authorizing the transfer of $20,000 and 0 cents from the Council District 1 carry forward account to the Council District 1 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. I'm going to jump down and take 2 more councilmember papers. Item 10, 20-1576, an ordinance by Councilmember Jennifer Knight authorizing a donation amount not to exceed $1,000 from the District 6 carry forward account to Linrich Martin Manor Neighborhood Association, Inc., and for other purposes. And item 11, 20-1581, an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland authorizing a donation amount not to exceed $5,000 and 0 cents from the Post 2 at large carry forward account to Jumpstart Atlanta in support of its annual Read for the Record initiative that encourages transformative change in early education and puts books in the hands of more children in Atlanta and for other purposes. So we're taking 8, 10, and 11 together. They're all council member carry forward papers. So I'll make a motion to adopt.
Shook seconds.
All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Mr. Dickens?
Yay.
All right. All right, these 3 items are favorable with, let me just wait for the count. Should that be 7 with Mr. Dickens?
Yes, we've updated the vote, Madam Chair.
Okay, maybe my computer's just not updating. There's 7 yeses, 0 noes. Those 3 items are favorable. Let's go back to item number 9, 20-1573, an ordinance by Councilmember Joyce M. Shepherd to ratify Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom's executive order ordering the implementation of a hazard pay policy applicable to employees designated as mission critical whose work could expose them to infection from the coronavirus as specifically described herein, which shall remain in effect through December 31st, 2020, and for other purposes. I make a motion to adopt.
Second by Shepherd.
Damn.
And I should have let Ms. Shepherd make the motion. Why don't you record Ms. Shepherd as the motion and I as the second? And then will you please open the vote?
The vote is open.
All right. Mr. Dickens?
Yay.
Okay, that's it. This item is favorable with 7 yeses, 0 noes. I think that gets us through our ordinance's second read to our resolutions. We've done 12. This is going to bring us to 13. 20R 4323, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee to enter into Amendment Number 1 to Sole Source Agreement FC 8910 Public Safety System, CAD support with TriTech Software Systems Inc. on behalf of the Department of Aviation, Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, and Atlanta Police Department to add additional funding in amount not to exceed $182,404.36. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from funding numbers listed herein and for other purposes. I will make a motion to adopt. Check seconds. Let's open the vote. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Brantley? I'm sure he's still with us.
The vote is open.
Mr. Dickens?
Yay.
All right. This item is favorable. 7 yeses, 0 noes. Next item is 14. 20R 4324, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute renewal option number 1 for agreement FC 9333, Fitness Center Management of the On-Site Employee Wellness Center on behalf of the Department of Human Resources in an aggregate amount not to exceed $380,000 for annual operating expenses with Aquila Fitness Consulting Systems Limited, and will be charged to and paid from the account listed herein and for other purposes. I do have one question. If we have anybody from Human Resources here, I'm assuming that the Wellness Center is not open during this time, and are there any virtual options or anything available on the fitness front to City of Atlanta employees right now?
Yes, Madam Chair, Louis Amos, Director of Employee Benefits. We are offering virtual services. They're doing webinars. They're continuing to offer other classes via Zoom and other processes. So those services are being made available.
Okay, and how are you all, maybe I'm not reading my email, how are you all pushing that out to employees to let them know what options they have while they're stuck at home?
There's a combination of communication. One, we obviously do communication to HR, right? But Aquila Fitness has members, employees who are members of the fitness center, and they are sending out newsletters and information directly out to those folks who have used the center on a consistent basis.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt.
Shook seconds.
And let's open the vote. Mr. Dickens, how do you vote?
Yay.
The vote is open.
All right, this item is favorable. I think I missed somebody who actually wanted to speak. Councilmember Archibald?
No, I can wait till afterwards.
Okay, the vote was 7 yeses, 0 noes. This item is favorable. All right.
Yeah, I'm having a little time hearing, but was that Mr. Amy on the line?
Yes.
And I was wondering about on this contract, the facility is not really being utilized very much. Can we get any additional months because of that or not?
We are working with the vendors. from the fitness side, I mean, they're still providing services, even though it's more so web-based and online training. So they are, in fact, providing services now. They're not billing us, obviously, for anything as it relates to the Duke or any of those services that are being provided. But for the services that they are being made available, they are billing us for those services.
So when you say the online services are available, how would that be communicated to employees? I was not aware of it, or maybe I overlooked an email. What's the communication engagement strategy?
Well, the communication is an HR alert, but we will also send out some additional information about the services that will be made available. I know Aquila is sending information out to those employees who are members of the fitness center, but we will make sure that additional information is made available to all employees through an HR alert communication.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying it was a public group of people who had regularly used the facility, but you're now going to send out a wider net.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
All right, let me see where we are. That is, I think we're at Mr. Selvin. Item 1520R 4325, a resolution of Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designate to enter into a sole source agreement for SS-S-1200530 Inside Apogee Advantage System Upgrade, Maintenance, and Support Agreement with Siemens Industry Inc. on behalf of the Department of Aviation Services in accordance with City Code of Ordinances, Section 2-1191, in an amount not to exceed $128,590 for the 3-year base term. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the account listed herein and for other purposes. And Mr. Selden, you know, I'm always wondering why we're doing sole source contracts. So that's my question for you before we consider the paper.
Good afternoon. This is John Selden, the general manager of Hartsfield Jackson. This is a sole source paper. If you've been through the underneath our fifth runway, which is a 1,500-foot underpass on Highway 285, you'll see a series of fans and exhaust system that's under here, under the highway. This system is the system that we use to control it, to make us comply with state regulations. It was running on Windows 7, which is unsupported. It is now running, this software will now run on Windows 10, and that's basically what we're paying for, is the new software to run on our system. And the system is set up by Siemens that is actually the only system that controls these exhaust fans in our tunnel. And they also give us intrusion protection on our entrances to the tunnel. So that's why it's sole source. It's already here, and this is just an upgrade to the system that works very well for us.
All right, I will make a motion to adopt then.
Shook seconds.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
I'm a yay.
All right, let's put Dickens down as a yes. Councilmember Shepherd, it doesn't look like your vote has come through. Okay, now I see it. All right, this item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 noes. Next item, Ms. Kempson writes 16 needs to be held.
We're going to hold it for one cycle. Yes, we'll hold it for one cycle for the iPro report.
Okay, so we need a motion to hold? Do we need to do a motion to hold, or because this one?
Yes, we do. We do need a motion to hold in a second.
So 16 is 20R 4326, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor who designate to execute a professional services agreement with Avius America, which is a special procurement to operate airport survey solutions at Hartsfield Jackson, amount not to exceed $2,923,908. And we are going to hold this and wait for the iPro report. So that is my motion to hold.
Shook seconds.
All right, let's open the vote. Mr. Dickens?
Yay.
The vote is open.
All right,
7 yeses, 0 no's. This item is held in committee, and we'll get to it in 2 weeks. Item number 17, 20R 4327, a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the execution of change order to add Federal Aviation Administration Grant 3-13-0008-122-2020 as a funding source for the contractual agreement with McCarthy Improvement Company for FC 1190311 taxiway and runway 9L-27R pavement replacement 2019 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in an amount not to exceed $10,666,667 in order to accomplish work within the original project scope and for other purposes. I'll make a motion to adopt.
Shook seconds.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Selden? If not, we will open the vote.
The vote is open.
Mr. Dickens?
Yay.
This item favorable. I'm just waiting for 7 yeses, 0 no's. Next item is 18, 20R 4328, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designate to issue task order number S2009 for contract FC 10641I with JOC Construction LLC for the purpose of repair and renovation of the Southwest Maintenance District building located at 2371 Wilson Drive Southwest as evaluated and deemed necessary by and on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation, amount not to exceed $62,882.04, all work to be charged to or paid from accounts listed and for other purposes. Make a motion to adopt.
Second, Westmoreland.
I cannot unmute fast enough.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Yay. Dickens.
All right. This item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Item 19 is 20R 4329, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor who designate to exercise renewal option number 2 for contract FC 8741 miscellaneous repairs and construction and include supplemental funding in amount not to exceed $325,000.00 for ADA and other improvements with SoCo Contracting Company, Inc., Ask Construction Company, Lichty Commercial Construction, Inc., and CTC Construction, LLC for a final term of 1 year. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Me make a motion to adopt. I believe we have Mr. Davis with us. If anybody has questions, Shook has seconded. So let me quickly ask Mr. Davis, are these mostly renew projects, the ADA projects?
This is Alvin Dodson, Deputy Commissioner of Parks and Rec.
Mr. Dodson, thank you.
Yes, no, these are, there's 4 user agencies with this Department of Parks and Rec, Renew Atlanta, Dean, and Atlanta Department of Transportation.
Okay. So some of them are Renew funded and some of them are, not all of the funding is coming from the Renew Atlanta Fund. Some of it's coming, I see, we have some park impact fees in this. And, yes. Okay. And this is an increase in cost, or this is really just a funding paper?
Well, this is more just exercise the final option. Originally it was 3 years, the 2 1-year options, and this is exercise the final option of 1 year.
Okay. All right. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Yay. Dickens.
All right. The item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Next item is 2020R 4330, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor and designee to exercise contract option number 2 to contract FC 10169 voice permits IVR enhancement system upgrade for Selectron Technologies, Inc. on behalf of the Department of City Planning and the Department of Watershed Management for 1 year beginning December 18, 2020 through December 17, 2021, in amount not to exceed $248,465.00 and for other purposes. I'm going to give the Department of Planning a gold star for getting this here so far in advance. That this doesn't start until December 18th. So I'll make a motion to adopt. I believe we have Mr. Pace with us if anybody has any questions.
Shook seconds.
All right. Open the vote.
The vote is open.
Mr. Dickens? Oh, looks like you're online.
Hi, I'm on the computer. It's working now.
I'm impressed. This item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 no's. And this brings us to our dual referred. It looks like item 21 stayed in CD. 22 is 20R 4319, a resolution by Councilmembers Matt Westmoreland, Carla Smith, Amir Faroki, Antonio Brown, Madeline Archibald, Jennifer Ibe, Howard Shook, J.C. Vansky, Dustin Hillis, Andrea Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, Joyce Shepard, Michael Julian Bond, and Andre Dickens, calling on the Development Authority of Fulton County to cease acting as issuer for lease purchase taxable revenue bonds within the limits of the City of Atlanta and for other purposes. Mr. Westmoreland, tell us what happened in CD, and since you were the main proponent of this, I think for the listening public, we just give in a nutshell what this paper is about.
I will. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to each of you for co-sponsoring this resolution. Yesterday in CDHS, this paper passed unanimously. We briefly discussed the role that tax abatements should play in community redevelopment and how they should be deployed to meet the objectives of the new Invest Atlanta Economic Mobility Strategic Plan that we adopted last Tuesday. I think for today, might make sense to touch on the financial impact. Since January of 2019, the Development Authority of Fulton County has issued $2.5 billion worth of lease purchase bonds within the limits of the City of Atlanta. The vast majority of those bonds went to office and mixed use and hotel and market rate residential projects in Midtown and West Midtown and Buckhead and along the Atlanta Beltline. Those actions abated more than $170 million worth of property taxes over the coming decade. And first off, making up that lost revenue will fall on the shoulders of Atlanta homeowners and renters. And then secondly, last month, the authority approved 3 separate abatements in 3 different tax allocation districts, which negatively impacts funding for Invest Atlanta grants. And it also delays the timeline by which we can pay off our debt and ultimately close the TAD. So 14 of the 15 members of this body have co-sponsored a resolution asking this body to continue doing their good work in the rest of Fulton County, but leave the City of Atlanta to Invest Atlanta and the lease purchase bonds that we deploy through our own entity. So I'll make a motion to adopt.
All right, I'll second. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open.
Oh, and Mr. Shook, I'm sorry, I just saw you had your hand raised.
That's fine. After the vote.
Okay. All right, so the vote was this item favorable, 7 yeses, 0 no's. Mr. Shook.
Yeah, so we're all behind this, and Mr. Westmoreland has more than adequately explained why, the bill keeps going up and up for our taxpayers. Now, here's my question. This is because this is not the first time we've asked them, and because the last time we asked them, they declined our request. I'm wondering if we should start discussing, other venues in which to have this conversation. And so I think we better start kind of preparing for that, just in case they decline this offer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shook. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes, I'm like Mr. Shook. We've been down this road before. Even in my district, they have done this several times where I actually have to go after them and said, how did you come in my district? The community voted against this multifamily project, didn't want it because of some issues in terms of affordable housing, yet you all voted up. You never even come to the community approve it. That's the other thing that I find is insulting is how this authority never interacts with the city to determine if it's something they support. They don't even interact with the Fulton County delegation to determine that. And so I'm hoping as we go forth with this resolution that we not only would send this to Fulton County, but to the authority to let them know they have to cease and desist, and that we should create a process that if they're going to do business in the city of Atlanta, they need to go to either Investment Land or someone to say, here's what we're doing in the city. How do we know what they're doing if they don't let us know? And I think it's just arrogance. It's horrible on their part. And we should be accepting this and all. So we need to be sending letters everywhere. Thank you.
You are welcome, and I completely agree. Mr. Westmoreland.
Yeah, no, obviously completely agree with everything that council members Shook and Shepherd have said. I think there are a couple ways that maybe this can be different. One is I am hopeful and have heard that this is a non-binding resolution. We can't direct this body how to act. The Fulton County Commission is having conversations, which also can't direct this body on how to act, is having conversations about potentially taking a similar action. I will note that there are 9 members of the Development Authority. 7 of those appointments expire next May. 2 of the 7, one is going to be a new appointment by Atlanta Public Schools. One will be a new appointment by Fulton County Public Schools. And then the other 5 will be from Fulton County commissioners who will either have the option to renew their current appointment or appoint someone new. And so while the commission can't direct the authority to stop taking this action, it can certainly influence their actions through the appointments that are made. And we should have a conversation with Atlanta Public Schools and Fulton County Public Schools about what their appointments will look like next spring. So one way or the other, come June 1st, we have the potential for this to look a lot different than it does right now. The only entity that can force a change is the Georgia General Assembly. David Dreyer has done a lot of good work on the House side to move that conversation forward. It's a steeper hill in the Senate, but hope springs eternal under the gold dome. But I think the appointments next spring is probably where we can see some movement.
Mr. Westmoreland, who makes those appointments?
The Fulton County Commission. Each commissioner has an individual appointment, and then at the moment, the body as a whole makes 2 at-large appointments. And in May, those at-large appointments are going to shift from the commission to 1 appointment by Atlanta Public Schools and 1 appointment by Fulton County Public Schools.
Okay. I think we know how Atlanta Public Schools has felt about it in the past. I'm not sure.
Yes, we do.
They still feel the same. Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to say on this topic? I've lost my train of thought. Ms. Kempson-Wright, did we vote on that, or do we need to vote on it?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did take the vote on that one.
Okay. All right. So we are on 23. No, 23 we did with Mr. Brown earlier. We are 24 stayed in public safety, 25 stayed in CD, 26 is 20-1572, an ordinance by Councilmember Andrea L. Boone amending the fiscal year 21 intergovernmental grant fund budget. Department of the Executive Office is an ordinance 20-1483 by adding to anticipations and appropriations in the amount of $13,556 for supplemental pay for emergency response through September 30th, 2020 from Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and waiving the requirement for Chapter 2, Article 9, Division
1, Section 2-910 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, entitled Grant Applications and Ratifying the Mayor's Actions in Applying for, Accepting, and Entering into Agreements in connection with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council and hiring additional staff to provide crime victim assistance services and for other purposes. And my understanding is this was favorable in public safety legal administration yesterday. Is that right, Councilmember Shepherd?
That is correct.
Okay. So, Councilmember Shepherd, do you want to make a motion? Or? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Sure. Well, second, I do have a question if there's someone online who can answer it, which is, what is the monthly burn rate for this bonus?
Are you talking about the hazard pay, Mr. Schiff?
Yeah.
Because I think this is something slightly different. I think we've already done the hazard pay paper, and maybe Councilmember Shepherd knows, but we've already done one hazard pay paper a couple items ago. I'm not exactly sure what this specific paper does. Or somebody from the administration?
What was the question again, Mr. Schiff? I'm sorry.
That's fine, and I'm going to support this paper. I am wondering, though, what the monthly burn rate is for hazard pay.
Do we have Mr. Norman on the phone to answer that question, and then tell us what this paper does differently from the hazard pay paper?
Good afternoon, Jeffrey Norman. I'm sorry I missed the question. Could you repeat the question?
So right now we have voted to extend the hazard pay paper, and then we have this second paper in front of us that's 20-1572 that is a paper just in the amount of $13,556 for supplemental pay for emergency response. So Mr. Shook was asking what the monthly burn is on the hazard pay for our frontline folks, and then I don't know if this paper that's in front of us falls under your purview also. But at least can you tell us what the burn is for the hazard pay bonuses?
Since I do not have that specific number in front of me, I know that it's around $2 million, but if Mr. Counsel is on the phone, he can probably give you a more accurate number.
Mr. Counsel, are you with us?
I'm trying to. Okay, you can hear me.
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, so the burn rate is about $1.8 million a month.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Counsel, are we able to cover most of that through our federal funding?
Yes. We have to cover 25% because we'll probably be getting the reimbursement from FEMA, but we've identified that funding already for that match.
Okay, so it can't be totally covered between CARES and FEMA. There does have to be a local contribution.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, but actually, we're using the CARES Act money as the match.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if we can piece it together between the two.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, Mr. Counsel, do you know exactly what this paper that's in front of us now, this item 26?
I have been looking at that, Madam Chair. I'm not sure just what this is doing.
Okay.
Well, this is for
Councilmember Shepherd. Yes.
This is legislation for helping immigrants. This is not.
Okay.
This is the immigrant paper.
Okay, so it's something totally different from the hazard pay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Shook got us turned around. Okay, well, I think we had a motion. You're always there to confuse us, Mr. Shook. All right, I think we had a motion by Shepherd and a second by Shook, and Ms. Kempson, right? Okay, now the vote's open. All right, this item is favorable, 7 yeses, 0 noes. Item 27 Let me see what the next one is. I think the rest of these are sitting in their committees. And are we to the walk-in, Ms. Kempson, right?
Yes, Madam Chair, we are at the walk-in, and no held items are coming off right now.
Okay. So the walk-in is, do you mind reading the caption, Ms. Kempson, right? I don't have it right here in front of me.
Yes, it is a resolution by Finance Executive Committee supplementing that Certain Series 2020 with the abundant ordinance 20-1551 adopted by the Atlanta City Council on August 17, 2020, and approved by the Mayor of the City on August 18, 2020, to, among other things, set forth the terms of the City of Atlanta Water and Wastewater Drawdown Revenue Fund Taxable Series 2020, including the original aggregate principal amount, interest rate, maturity amount, and maturity date, ratifying certain prior actions of the officers of the City with respect to the issuance and sale of the Series 2020 with the above, and approving other matters in connection with the foregoing and for the purposes.
Mr. Counsel, if you're still with us, will you just tell us briefly what this is about?
Yeah, so basically, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. This is the pricing paper. You know, as you know, with every bond issuance, we have a pricing, and we call you guys back to approve that pricing. And generally, that's done on a Wednesday. But EPA is a little bit different, and they would not bend. And so their pricing for them will be this Friday. So we need to actually be able to get it passed on Monday so we can effectuate the necessary signage so we can move this on.
Okay, thank you. So are you going to need us to come back for a specially called meeting to approve this, or is this what we need to be doing?
This is John Gaffney. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I think what we need to do is it'll just need to be substituted before Monday. And so what will happen is we will get the final interest rate on this Friday, and then we'll put that in the paper and substitute it. So I believe the correct course would be to approve on condition that the interest rate gets substituted before Monday.
Okay. All right, well, that is my motion then, to approve on condition that we substitute the interest rate on Monday.
Shook seconds.
All right, anybody else have questions for finance? Otherwise, let's open the vote. All right, this item is favorable on condition, 7 yeses, 0 noes. And that concludes our legislative agenda. If nobody else has any announcements or other business, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thank you everybody for being here today, and we will see everybody on Monday.
Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thanks. Thank you.